organic, then our job is just to feed the fire. Really, in this moment, we can see the development of that speaks for itself. The longevity of it will be determined by how well it works.
I wanted to add a little something. Well, I wanted to have some comments of what was said a little earlier, but just to kind of answer, talk to what Michael was saying. I think because now everyone's being forced to be virtual, everyone wants to get online and all those things, and some people feel like that's temporary. And I feel it shouldn't be looked at as temporary. Like, so for example, if I am curating art shows, I have something coming up in August, and I'm considering, even if we're open by August, to still have a virtual component. So, and I'm doing another project with Scott and them, and part of it is community engagement and art making. And one of the things that I'm going to be creating is virtual conversations like these, where you're getting like maybe a few people who have, you know, some panelists or things like that, and getting other people online. So getting more people involved with Zoom. There's other products out there similar to Zoom. I mean, now someone sent me something, it's called House Party. So it's more kind of a social app.
Right,
You still can get, you know, it's a, yeah, so it's an app where you get people on a video chat, and you could play games, but you could also have conversations in locked rooms. So I think for those of us who are already online doing things, to keep teaching other people and supporting them getting online, trying those things, but also to not look at it as a temporary fix, but figure out ways to incorporate this throughout. So, because then you have more expansion. I just had like a little birthday party virtually, and we had a performance person. So we were able to employ a dancer to come on and do a performance. But at the same time, I said, wow, there's people on this call who normally would not be able to be physically with me on my birthday. Now this gives a space to someone that I haven't seen in 20 years. So, so getting people online, you know, getting them more acclimated with the things that's out there, and don't look at, you know, and those of us who are there, not to look at it as temporary, look at it as keep promoting. You know, ArtServe did a great thing where they had a talk, they did Zoom, they had a little slideshow going on, so they already did a little research on each artist to have something there, but keeping those things going, I think is really important. Just as, you know, tools and things that we could be doing as artists, as anybody. I do want to kind of bring up, because something that Corinna was mentioning with the NPR and the flights, and, you know, how that's going to, you know, could cause more, you know, segregation, all these things. And one of the things that's kind of concerned me, and I don't know how it fits into placemaking, but like there's so many people who are looking for support right now, and some of it fits easily into like, oh, I could apply for unemployment and things like that. There's 5 million people that are independent, like artists and things like that, and there's programs there. But like you know, we saw how millions of dollars went to a steakhouse, you know, and businesses, and even in South Florida specifically, they said 1,000, there was a SBA loan, I think it was. It said 1,000 people got $50,000. If 1,000 organizations got $50,000 and 30,000 got nothing. So it's a little disheartening when you see those things, because there's a lot of people like, oh, the old way is wrong. We have to, you know, people being more thoughtful in smaller levels, you know, and but at the same time, when you have things like this, you know, where you get big businesses and banks that are going to support their big businesses and not really look out for everyone. But I'm also concerned that how that makes more of a gap of not just accessibility, but now people, you know, are going to be jeopardizing losing their small business because they couldn't get a loan. You have one person who is a restaurant owner who sold her car to give her employees money. And then you have people like the Roots Steakhouse getting 20 million and don't need it. So, you know, when you need more voices and things like this, but more and more people are going to be trying to struggle just to survive, that's a concern. And how do they get support, or how do we support those that, you know, cottage industries? A lot of people, yeah, we might be small businesses, but do they have the paperwork to get this stuff. I just saw something being posted by arts, our cultural division, and it's meant to be an art relief. They're like, oh, if you have a nonprofit, and here's 50 pages of paperwork.
Yeah.
You know, and so not everybody has the money to pay $400 a year for a nonprofit or needs it. So it's just like, okay, how do we support those people that doesn't come, you know, fall into those little pockets? And these are people that's always getting money. There's our fund also that did some initiative to and said, what do people need? And, you know, my thing is that, you know, hoping that organizations with money or powers and people that be, you know, to make sure that they have a team, some people that's dedicated to be like, okay, we understand the nonprofits. The nonprofits know how to do the paperwork and all that, kind of speaking back to Michael, like not all artists know all these things, but who's looking out for those people who don't have those proper paperwork, but still supporting their home, who's still contributing to society? There was this saying that I saw, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember, but it's just like the people who have good intentions, we need to be able to organize on the same level as the people that don't. So that creates, you know, you need power, you need organization, you need people moving. And how do you get that when a lot of people are just like, how am I making my rent? You know, or how do I get access to these things? Like, yeah, I'm self-employed, but I may not have this or I may not have that, you know, and there's a lot of people that it's gonna make that gap even wider between the people that have and the have-nots, and then the people who don't need the money, getting money, and the people that need it don't have access. So I just wanted to throw that out there if any other people have thoughts on that or supports on that. But I think that's something also when we're looking about everyone having a voice, and there's a lot of voices that are just trying to figure out how they're going to keep their spaces.
I thank you so much for bringing that up, Niki, because if I could just mention, today I was walking in Little Havana because I needed to buy something at the grocery store, and I noticed that this longtime mom and pop store that's been around there for over 50 years. It's a fruteria, Los Pinareños, and it's not just a place that sells fruit. It's like been a gathering place for so long for community members, and they help folks find jobs. It's a real community center. And I just happened to see the owner in the shop, which is closed officially, and we chatted for a little bit, and he just said, you know, I'm worried that all of our little that Amazon is getting all this money and all these, it's not just that these particular businesses are retail businesses, but they're part of the placemaking, because they're not just a public space, because even though they're private small businesses, there's so much of they give in a way that a mass chain store or a warehouse or something or Amazon cannot possibly give to the soul of this neighborhood, and I would even argue the mental health. So they too, these mom and pop stores, they don't know they're not nonprofits. They don't know, and they may not, and a lot of them have been cash-based for a long time. So I'm just very worried about them and how that affects the whole dynamic in the broader neighborhood when those start to close and then become replaced with, you know, chain stores or nothing.
Well, I want to jump in for a second. Thank you, Corinna and Niki. So all of this causes me to want to sort of ask the challenge question, which is, post-COVID-19, what does life look like? And how can we use these tools to make life better? So it's interesting to note, as we now really identify from a health perspective those areas of greatest need, and then from an economic perspective as well. And I think you'll see overlap in those areas where small businesses are suffering in parallel with higher incidences of COVID. I don't think that'll be exclusive, but I think you'll see that. How do Michael and Niki and Aurelie and the placemakers of the world help that small business stay in business, how or defend against the Amazon takeover, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this and the governance and all of the confusing stuff, when it comes down to getting operational, it's going to be the old placemaking paradigm. What you and I, Michael, and you and I, Niki, and others have done together is lighter, quicker, cheaper stuff. We're going to do it in the places that call us to do it. The idea of the declaration is to let folks know a little bit more about who we are and why we're there. And yet in operation, that isn't going to change what we've been doing online or in person. And I do have to stop for a minute and say, if these bonds are not common among all humans, to want to make their places better, to want to protect their neighbors, then why would the first city in the world to adopt a placemaking declaration with an equity component in it be a communist country and do it in a top-down way? Obviously, human need is speaking for itself in that regard. The way we act on it, what we write down and what we do, they should fall together. But I don't want to have folks become daunted by the written word when it's really our actions that make the difference.
Yes.